Hello there, my name is Zedera Wango from Kodarasa, and today we're going to start the SQL course. We're going to start by installing Postgres and playing around with it. Then we'll get into more in-depth details later. So this is the beginning of the course. We're going to look at how to install PostgreSQL. That's the database I'm going to use for this presentation. We're going to use PostgreSQL. So there are different ways to install Postgres. When you go to postgresql.org, you'll see the different installers depending on your operating system, and even within your operating system, like for instance in my case macOS, I still have different ways to install Postgres. I have interactive installer by EDB, I have Postgres app, I have Homebrew, I have MacPorts, whatever you feel is best fit for you. I'm going to use Homebrew, so I'm just going to come in here, reinstall PostgreSQL. It's installing Postgres 14 specifically, so that's done. I have an option of now starting it and leaving it as a background process, but I don't want that. I'm going to start using this other command, opt brew opt blah blah blah. That's what I'm going to use. So now my Postgres is started. And you can now see here listening on port 5432, listening on IPv4, address, IPv6, all that. So let's get into PSQL and have some fun. We're in. So we can start with listing. They used my name, the computer's name, as the default. They use the computer's name as a default role. So depending on your setup, that will probably be the case. Sometimes the default role is Postgres. So I mean, we can see here some databases. I tried to list the databases I have. I have Postgres, I have SMS, I have template 0, I have template 1. So I'm actually going to drop this SMS DB so that we set it up. So drop database. So once you're in PSQL, you can write all your SQL commands in a normal way. So that's good. And remember to always end with a semicolon. If you don't, it will keep expecting more. As you can see, we've been able to delete it. Let me show you what I meant when I said if you don't delete, remove, like terminate with a semicolon, it will keep expecting more. If I do this, notice how it moved from having an equal sign and a hash sign to a dash and an equal sign. That means it's still expecting more. So when I do something like listing at this point, the database is not being created. It's still expecting more. But when I terminate, it now creates the database. So we have our database created. So that's just something to be aware of. If you may miss out because it's a really slight change, and you can easily miss on it and keep adding commands and wondering why is the thing not working, but you do have to terminate. So we now have our database. Let's get into it. Let's connect to that database. You're now connected to database SMS as user. Why there? Yeah, it's written wrong. They don't allow my way of writing my name, but that's not a big deal. So I'm now in the database. Let's create a table. We're going to use the school management system. It's my go-to system. When I get to other projects, I may change to that, but for now I'm sticking to school management system because everyone really understands that most people have been to school. So create table student. Terminate. Oh, don't terminate. Here's why it won't work. That's not the syntax of creating. You actually need to add the data types, you have to add the column names. I created an entity relationship diagram, a very simple one for that. It has a student, it has a teacher table, it has a student teacher, we have a student activity, and we have an activity. We'll get to create all these in future, but for now, we're just handling the basics. So let's just create a table student and see what we can do with that. So I'm not also going to add all these details. As you can see here, we have student ID, first name, last name, date of birth, class ID, activity ID. which is a lot. And I'm just showing you how to use this. So let's handle it very simply. Student ID, terminate. It created a table for some reason, but we've not created it in the right way. So I'm going to drop this table. Drop table. So right now when I try to list tables, I'll be told did not find any relations. We have no tables. Let's now create our student table. Create table student. I'm just going to give it 2 columns. Student ID as a primary key. I'm not even going to say it's a primary key. I'm just going to give it the data type and name. And I'm going to use varchar for that. Varchar, depending on you. And I terminate with a semicolon. And we have our table. Oh, I just listed the database. When I list the tables, I now have a student table. So now that we have a table, let's insert some data. Insert into student. So here you have 2 options. You can list all the values specifically that you want to assign this data to, or you can, let's do it both ways. Insert into student values. Here I'm just going to follow the order without specifying the columns that I'm inserting the data into. So insert into student values. No, we are starting with an int 1, and I use Wangoi as the name of the student. And again, terminate. We can see here insert 1 record. So when you try to select all from this table, we'll now see that we have 1 student Wangoi. So that's one way of inserting. The other way is by specifying the columns. Insert into student. I'm going to just specify the student ID here. Values 1. Terminate. We can see it has been inserted. So you've seen the 2 ways where you don't specify the column names and you just follow the order of columns, or you actually specify the column names. Both can be used. It depends on what you prefer, but I would go with the column names because you are certain of the mapping of each column to the actual value in the first place. So here when we select all from student, we have that. So notice how the student ID, we have 2 student IDs with 1. That's because we've not added the constraint from primary key. That's something we can add later. Apart from playing around with tables, the select statement can be used for other use cases. For instance, we can say select 2 plus 2. And again, we terminate, we'll get 4. So notice how we are able to do numerical operations here. You can also do something like select. Also, another thing to point out here is you can, the SQL statements are case sensitive, but capital letters are preferred. You'll not be penalized for not having it. So here's another example. I selected current date, and I got the current date to be 2024-10-15. That's our current date. So we've played with different select statements. Let's play around with a different SQL statement. So let's use alter. So alter, let's add a new column to our table. Let me preach what I say by actually using capital letters. Alter table student, add column, middle name, let's call it preferred name, name of you also have to specify the data type, varchar 20. You don't terminate, it still keeps waiting for command, so we terminate. As you can see, it says alter table. So right now when we select all from student, we'll have a third extra column. Let's say we now add yet another column. Why not? Let's make this gender. Let's leave it a varchar. I'm trying to make this very simple. I'm going to give it 5 and specify that gender will always have a constraint of not null. It can never be null. We'll see it errors because column gender of relation student contains null values, because we had created, prior to this, we had created 2 different students and they had null values. So it fails because of that. Back to select all from student. Forgive me for using small letters, it's just quicker. So it won't let us. We were trying to do 2 things. We're trying to add a new column, gender, and we're giving it a default because we want it to always not be null. So I'm going to give it a default value. Select, alter table, student, add column, gender, and give it the data type. I'm not sure I can add a constraint right now, but let me do that. And then I add another constraint default to be F. I terminate. It actually altered the table, so select all from student. We now have a new column, student, with gender. So let's try and insert a new value, and this time we'll just do the same case as the first time. So insert into student. I'll just add a name, values, I terminate. It shows I've inserted. See how I was able to insert even with the not null constraint there, because like I said, we have a default value set. If we didn't have that default value, I'd have had to specify that column. So select all from student, and let me actually show you that we're going to add another column, school. Okay, that doesn't make sense, but anyway, I'm going to end it there. We've done some things. We've selected all, we've viewed databases, we've seen how to connect to a database, we've seen how to alter, you've seen me drop tables, you've seen me drop databases. So I've altered, I've inserted, I've selected all. Let me just do one extra one before we move to pgAdmin, which is more fun, but we have to start with the basics. Select all from student. Is it more fun? I feel like this is fun. Where student ID is equals to 2. We don't have such a student ID. Syntax, select all from. I missed the from. So add the from. We see 0 rows because we don't have a student with ID 2. But when I do 1, we do have 2 students with ID 1. Of course, it shouldn't be like that, but who's caring, right? Anyway, we've had our fun, so we quit. And we clear. Now it's our time to install pgAdmin. Brew install. That's the reason I actually used brew, because I wanted that same play with pgAdmin. Of course, when you use the EDB installer, which is available for Windows and Mac OS, I'm not sure about Linux, you'll have 3 things installed by default. If you choose them, of course, there's a selection. There's Postgres, there's pgAdmin, and there's Stack Builder. So pick what you works for you. This just happened to work for me, and this is just an example of how you can work with it. And notice when I was installing Postgres, I just said PostgreSQL. I didn't specify the version number. Feel free to specify the version number to work with the one you want. I expected it to pick the latest Postgres when I did that, but it kept showing me 14. But according to this, the latest version we have is 16. Let me see. We have, actually 17 was released on September 26. So you can actually be able to install that. Let me do that. I'll uninstall it. I don't know if it will mess with my current installation. As you can see, pgAdmin is already here. Postgres at 17. And it's downloading, but we don't want it to do that. But that wasn't our focus. Back to pgAdmin. We now have pgAdmin. Go to the applications and we'll see we have pgAdmin. Exciting. A scandaler. Open. So pgAdmin is starting. I need to give it a password. Alright. So this is my password for my machine. I'm going to enter again. So at this point, it's Python wants to access key pgAdmin for in your kitchen. So use your Mac password for this. I was asked for a password there. I didn't put any password on install, so I didn't put anything. If you created, for instance, using ADB, if you install using ADB, sometimes you're asked for the password, and that's the password you put when you're logging into the database. Specifically, for me, my database, I didn't specify any password, so that's why I'm able to enter without a password. Just something to check. When you go to tables, we can see we have our student table here. So let's open a script so we have select student ID, name, preferred name, gender. So this is also another way of selecting. Instead of saying selector, you can specify the columns you want and you'll get those. So we have all these, and I don't like how it looks, so I'm going to clean it up. How do I do that? I'm going to truncate. So truncate. Are you sure you want to truncate student? Yes. What does truncate do? It clears all the data without deleting the table. So you saw how to drop a table that would actually get rid of the table, but we want to maintain everything. Let's check the DDL, the create script. We can see now the script that was used to create this table. You can see the current settings. We have student ID, that's integer. We have name, that's a character. Preferred name, again a character. And gender, character. That could have been Boolean, and it has two defaults, two constraints. We have not null and default being F. So let's add one more. I want student ID to be my primary key. I'm just going to add it here. Alter table student, add primary key to column student ID. If I didn't have another query here, I would be able to just run by default, but I had to select the section that I'm running. So it has been able to alter. When we look at the select, we can see PK on student ID now. It's now a primary key, and that will help us with things like auto incrementing. It will help us with, let me look at the DDL again. Script, yeah, create script. We can now see student ID, integer. Yeah. Oh, okay. We have constraint student primary key, student ID. So it's now that. Let's add some data. Let's have some fun. We currently have no data, as you can see. So insert, let me try and actually use capital letters. Insert into student, and here I'm going to specify all the values. Student ID, name, preferred, I think I'll leave out the preferred name. I'll also leave out the gender. Values, and now the values. I left out the preferred name because it can be optional. Also, I didn't add a not null constraint, so it can be optional. And so is name really, but we still do need the name, and I didn't specify that. I can't specify, but you've seen, the whole point is you know how to do that on your own. So values, I'm going to add different values. I'm going to add 1 and name her Wangoi. I'm going to add more values. I'm going to play around with you. I'm going to give you the same student ID. Let's see what we'll have. And then I terminate. And then I run. We get an error here. Duplicate key violates unique constraint student primary key. So because of the fact that we made it a primary key, that means it should always have a unique number. And now when I change that, it allows the insert. So back to selecting all, we have preferred name being null and we have gender. We can now also, so you see now to add multiple values, insert multiple values, and also let's introduce a new concept, foreign key. No, maybe that's too much. Let me add some more values for fun. I'm trying to make it very, very beginner friendly. Of course, we'll discuss all the concepts as we go, so don't worry about it. Karendi, and then we have more values for Mokami. And then we have Kendi. I'm going to insert this. So duplicate V. Oh, okay. This is happening because I'm already adding these two which already exist. So I'm going to make this 6 and make this 7, so that it allows us to insert. And the insert was successful. We've added 5 more students, and there they are. So having that, let me just remove this from here. I can do another select all from student, where student ID is greater than 3. So if your student ID is greater than 3, give me those. We can see we have 4 people and they have 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's the deal. I should have made more males, not more males, actual males. There's no students with the gender male. In my defense, all the names are actually female. So let me add 1 male person. Gender equality. Insert into student. I mean, that's what they say when they add 1 female person to board meetings. And they're like, yay, equality for all. But hey, not activism time. Student ID, name, values, 8 and Motweri. And let me add, from the kindness of my heart, 9 Mutugi, I'm such a philanthropist. A heart of gold. One more male person. Oh, I do need to specify the gender here. So I'm going to also add the gender column, because if I don't, it will default to female. I'm going to use I'm going to use 10 Mochoi M. Yay! Inserted. So now we actually have people with M. So select off from student where gender is equal to M. We are free. Same for female, of course, the opposite will happen. So we've played with different parts of it. We've selected, we've used the where statement, we've inserted, we've truncated, we've dropped. We've actually played with constraints, different constraints, primary key, set default, not null. We've seen what happens when you actually don't follow the constraints. And I think I'm going to end it at that. That was it. Other than that, I can maybe show you how to uninstall. For my case, I'll just do brew uninstall and then the name of the command, the name of the formula. And that's it. That's it on Postgres. Our next session will be covering databases and on, and I hope to see you there. As always, my name is Waithera Wangui. I am from Kodarasa. I'll keep repeating. Waithera Wangui, Kodarasa. Let that be a household name. I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. One day it will be a household name. I chat a lot, clearly. But not really a household name. What a narcissist. But yeah, I hope to see you there, and I hope you had fun and happy learning. Until next time, goodbye.